It'll be interesting to see what happens this fall.
Hey, Congressman, to a total outsider, which I truly consider myself on these issues these days, what it looks like on the budget negotiations is it looks as though the president's moved pretty far in your direction. It looks as though Republicans have moved his direction a little. So the outsider, it's sort of like, well, why don't you split the difference and have a deal?
No, well, because the budget's not about numbers and green eye shades and calculators. It's about concepts. We want welfare to be written at home. They want to keep it here. We want senior citizens to have choice. I don't know what they're for in Medicare. And in Medicaid, we want the governors to be able to design the programs at home. They don't want that. We want to downsize government in the discretionary area because we don't want to have a lot of government. They want it. We're for incentives for risk-taking on capital gains. They're for raising taxes on capital gains. I mean, the differences are just fundamental. They're not about little numbers. Numbers are not what the budget's about. The budget is about a vision and ideas and concepts, and we're nowhere close on those.
Can you overcome those fundamental differences in this election year?
Can we, I'm sorry?
Can you overcome those fundamental differences, this being an election year?
Well, I'd like to, hope springs eternal, but honestly, this is such a fundamental difference, it may have to be decided in November, and I'm comfortable with that.
It'll be interesting.
I don't tell you this. I think that we have in life, not just up here on Capitol Hill, but in life, we have been too willing to make compromises that erodes our principles. If the president really believes in this, I know I believe in what our position is, you get to the point where you can't go any further because it becomes a sellout. And I think that across this country, we've had too many sellouts, and I think it's time to stand on principle and not cave. And I tell young people that, and older people that, and doctors that, and everybody. We got to just stand for what we believe in more and be less willing to just sell out what we think.
But don't you think the American people expect some compromise? I mean, I think that there are people on both sides of these arguments who have very deeply held beliefs about it. But the role of the government is to somehow find a middle ground between those, I don't want to say extremes, but between those dug-in beliefs and make progress. What do you tell voters when you go home and both sides are so dug in that it's gridlock?
Yeah. Dee Dee, the problem with that is if I were there, I'd have brought the numbers to show you how far we changed. Plus, not just numbers, but I would show you that, for example, in Medicaid, we have what's called guarantees, which says there are populations like children who will be taken care of and the severely disabled, which I'm comfortable doing. So we have moved a long way, but frankly, we haven't seen much movement out of the White House, and I don't say that as a partisan because, as you know, I probably passed more bills on Capitol Hill working with Democrats than any Republican breathing up here today.
But, Congressman, with all due respect, you are a partisan and one hell of a good one. Let's go to the phones. Bob from Delaware, come on in.
Hi. I don't want a tax cut. Every time we've had a tax cut in the last 20 years, it's cost me more money.
I would suggest we take yours and we can give it to somebody, give it to that lady that was working on that exercise bike. I mean, look, the biggest part of our tax cut is to give a $500 tax credit to families under $100,000 in income. If there is anybody in this country who has been neglected in my career and over the last decade plus, it's young working families with children. And as we downsize government, I think they ought to get some of their money. Now, for those who oppose a tax cut, what they generally favor on Capitol Hill is higher spending on entitlements. That's the last thing we need. That's what's bankrupting us and forcing the next generation to work a lifetime in order to pay for our debts.
Why cut the earned income tax credit then, Congressman? It rewards work, particularly for families with children.
As you know, I'm a very strong advocate of the earned income tax credit and have fought very strongly for it up here, and I think the president knows that that's been my position on it. I think there are changes that can be made. The program's grown at like 2,000%, and we're now giving the earned income tax credit to childless couples, which was never the intent. But I favor the concept, and I favor the program, the earned income tax credit. I frankly took on everybody from, well, let's just say that just about everybody in my Republican Party who were part of our own internal negotiations, because I believe that's a good program.
Congressman, will the briefly lived Steve Forbes phenomenon and his flat tax proposal, will that spark anything we can look forward to next year? I mean, I really believe that it's sort of the leading edge of what should be a really serious debate about a simpler, fairer tax system.
Well, we know we want simpler, we know we want fair, and we know we're all fed up with being afraid, living in fear of the IRS, like many small businessmen are in fear of a lot of bureaucrats that come into their businesses and frankly harass them at times. But I think, Dee Dee, that when you get down to it, if If you're going to have a flat tax, it's going to cut the taxes for the rich and eliminate taxes for the poor. Wonder who's going to pay the bill. So I think we got to be careful. I'd like to maintain the charitable deduction and the home mortgage, but clearly we need a simpler tax, and we shouldn't have to hire lawyers and accountants to tell us how to pay something we really don't even want to pay. The consumption tax is going to come up as well, and I think we're going to see this debate unfold next year.
Next year after the election's over.
I think we'll have some hearings this year, but we're not going to decide it this year.
Congressman, unfortunately, we're out of time. It always goes too fast when you're here. Thanks for being our guest. Next time, will you please come visit us?
Yeah, I want to come again. It's been too long, and I promise I'll come to the studio.
God, I guess so. We can't even give you any presents.
And Dee Dee, I wore Tweety Bird tonight, but I wanted you to know there are no left wings on this bird. Thank
All right,
you.
Congressman, take care.
Night.
Thanks, Tori.
Thank you.
We'll see you again tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, tune in for veteran broadcaster Howard K. Smith, a legend. Rivera Live is up next, Menendez News. Good night from your nation's capital.